The derelict vessel drifted through the void like a corpse preserved by the cold. Lieutenant Serka watched it rotate slowly beyond the viewport of her shuttle, a vast silhouette half swallowed by nebular dust. The ship's human design was brutal, sharp, angular, unrefined, but even after 2 centuries it had not surrendered to decay. That endurance stirred something in her that felt uncomfortably like admiration. Docking complete, came the dry voice of her pilot. Serka adjusted her respirator and stepped into the airlock, her boots clanging against metal older than her species' spaceflight. The temperature dropped instantly, biting through her suit. She relished it. Ancient things should feel cold. Her team followed in disciplined silence. Her cautious engineer, Jorl, the xenobiologist with too much curiosity for his own good, and 2 armed sentries whose names she never remembered. Their lights cut through the gloom as they entered the main corridor. Dust hung in the air like suspended time. Faded symbols in the human script lined the walls, indecipherable but strangely symmetrical. Power traces minimal, Ver reported. Structural integrity, 94%. Extraordinary. Serka's frilled ears twitched. Record everything. The High Command wants proof humanity truly died out. Let's give him evidence. She moved with deliberate confidence, though inside she fought a tremor of unease. Humanity's wars had burned half the stars in their region, leaving behind ruins and myths. The Croth Dominion had risen from that ash, claiming dominion over what the humans had abandoned. Yet walking these silent corridors, she sensed the arrogance in believing they'd inherited victory. The walls seemed to whisper defiance in every rivet. The team reached a sealed bulkhead, its doors thick with frost. A flickering display glowed weakly beside it. Cryo storage. The translator murmured in her ear. The phrase made her pause. We might find preserved remains, Jorl said, excitement in his voice. Imagine the biological data, actual Terran DNA. Serka glanced at him. Proceed carefully. Anything volatile, we contain. He nodded, and Ver began rerouting power from their portable generator into the panel. The system groaned, protested, then yielded. The doors shuddered open, releasing a hiss of ancient air that smelled faintly metallic and sweet. Inside the cryobay, rows of pods stretched into the dark, crystalline with ice. Each stood upright, transparent lids obscured by frost patterns. Serka's breath clouded her visor. Count them, she ordered. Ver ran a scan. 23 units, all sealed. Energy readings from one. Very faint. She approached that pod. The label was scratched, letters half visible beneath the frost. Phantom-9. Her translator hesitated over the term before producing a neutral tone. Designation unknown. Jorl wiped the surface with a gloved hand. Human military project, perhaps. The others are dead systems, but this one's still alive. Serka stared at the faint pulse of light beneath the glass. Alive, she repeated. The thought unsettled her. Impossible. 200 years. Some form of stasis field. Jorl interrupted, scanning the readings. Temperature regulation, nanite activity. It's preserving metabolic function. The sentries raised their weapons instinctively. Serka considered the situation. Recovering a living human specimen would secure her promotion for life. But another thought whispered beneath the ambition. Curiosity, darker and more dangerous. Begin controlled reactivation, she said. Ver hesitated. Lieutenant, the warning labels look. The console beneath the pod flickered with a faded crimson triangle. A single line of human text flashed weakly. Do not engage. Phantom class containment. Translation errors, Serka said, forcing calm. Do it. The engineers obeyed. Power surged through the lines. Lights across the deck flickered like dying stars. The hum of the ancient machinery rose, deep and resonant. The frost began to melt, forming thin rivers down the glass. Inside, the figure stirred. A human male, large, pale, his chest latticed with faint silver threads beneath the skin. His eyelids fluttered. Jorl took a step back. Lieutenant, the life signs are stabilizing. The man's chest rose once, twice. Then his eyes opened, bright, unnatural blue, faintly luminescent. He exhaled a shallow breath, condensation fogging the interior of the pod. For a long, silent moment, he simply looked at them. There was no confusion in his gaze, only calculation. Then the glass retracted with a mechanical sigh. The human sat up, movements smooth and deliberate, as though no time had passed at all. Serka's pulse thudded against her throat. "Identify yourself," she demanded, her translator smoothing the tremor from her voice. He tilted his head slightly, studying her as if she were the one on display. "Who are you?" he asked. His voice was calm, modulated, but it carried authority that filled the room. "I am Lieutenant Serka of the Croth Dominion," she replied. "This ship is under salvage jurisdiction. You will—" "Dominion," he repeated softly, tasting the word like an old memory. "You're not human." "We are the inheritors of this sector," she said, choosing pride over fear. "Humanity is extinct. You're a relic." A faint smile crossed his face, sad, knowing, and entirely too composed for someone waking from centuries of death. "If humanity is gone," he said quietly, "why am I still here?" No one answered. The temperature seemed to drop further as he swung his legs over the edge of the pod. Every movement was controlled, economical. Ver lifted his scanner again. It shorted out with a spark. Static rippled through every comm link. The ship's dormant lights flickered awake, one after another, as though responding to him. Serka took a cautious step forward. "You will remain still," she ordered. He looked at her, eyes bright beneath the frost's dim light. "You shouldn't have opened that pod." The sentence struck her harder than any weapon. Before she could respond, every console in the room went dark, leaving only the eerie glow of his eyes and the rhythmic hum of the ship awakening around them. Somewhere deep within the vessel, ancient systems began to stir, as if recognizing a long-lost master. Serka felt her breath catch, torn between triumph and dread. Then the human, Phantom-9, the name echoed in her mind, rose to his full height, taller than any of them, and said in that same measured tone, "Tell me, Lieutenant, what year is it?" Serka hesitated, realizing too late that her discovery was not a specimen, but something far more dangerous. When she finally spoke, her voice was a whisper swallowed by the ship's awakening hum. "It's the year 742 of the Dominion calendar." He closed his eyes, a flicker of emotion passing across his face. Grief, perhaps, or anger long buried. When he looked at her again, the expression was gone. "Then I've overslept," he said. And with that, the Dreadnought began to breathe again. The hum of the Dreadnought deepened until it felt alive beneath their feet. Warning lights pulsed dimly through the frost, casting the Cryopod in shades of red and amber. Lieutenant Serka's pulse mirrored the rhythm, fast and uneven. Phantom-9 stood motionless beside the open pod, studying the room with quiet detachment. His breath formed thin trails of vapor that hung in the air like ghosts of centuries past. Every instrument in the chamber registered interference. Scanners crackled with static, readings spun out of calibration. He seemed to bend the ship's technology to his presence simply by existing. Ver's voice broke the silence. "Lieutenant, electromagnetic surge. Every circuit is spiking." His clawed fingers moved over the console, but the display refused to obey. Sparks leapt from the wiring, and the smell of ozone filled the air. Phantom turned his head slightly toward the sound, and the screen went dark as though silenced by command. Serka felt the hairs along her neck ridge stiffen. "Cease attempts at control," she ordered. "We don't provoke what we don't understand." The words came out colder than she intended, but fear disguised itself well as authority. Phantom's gaze shifted to her. "You command them," he said softly, voice low and deliberate. "Yet you do not understand where you stand." His tone was not threatening, merely factual, and that frightened her more than a shout would have. "You are aboard the Erebus. Last command note of the Phantom Division." He moved toward the nearest console, fingers brushing across dust-coated panels. The ancient systems responded instantly, lighting under his touch. Lines of human code rippled across the walls like awakening neurons. Serka stepped forward despite the instinct to retreat. "You are aboard a derelict," she countered. "The Dominion claims this vessel. Whatever purpose you once served, it ended centuries ago." She tried to make her voice sound firm, but it trembled beneath the weight of his calm certainty. Phantom looked over his shoulder. "Centuries," he repeated, almost to himself. Then the signal failed. His expression darkened, a shadow of realization crossing his features. "How long have the stars burned without us?" Jorl, ever eager to prove his intelligence, spoke without permission. "Humanity collapsed after the solar wars. Your species consumed itself. We found only ruins." He sounded almost proud of the declaration, as if their survival justified it. Phantom's eyes turned to him, and Jorl immediately stepped back. "No," Phantom said quietly. "We built this ship to ensure survival. If we failed, it was not by choice." He placed his palm flat on the console. The ship responded with a deep mechanical rumble. Somewhere far below, heavy doors shifted. Serka's visor flickered with new readings. Reactor signatures, faint but climbing. "Lieutenant," Burr said urgently, "he's accessing the main core. We need to shut him out." "Try, and you'll fry every circuit," she snapped. The lights above them flared bright white, momentarily blinding. When they faded, the room had changed. Transparent holographic panels now floated in the air, displaying schematics and data in Terran code. The ship's voice emerged from hidden speakers, calm and resonant. "Command authority confirmed. Phantom-9 online." Phantom exhaled slowly. "The Erebus still remembers." His words held relief and grief entwined. She was waiting. Serka realized that the human was not just a soldier. He was a living key. Whatever the Phantom Division had been, it was inseparable from this machine. "What are you activating?" she demanded. He looked at her, expression unreadable. "The Ghost Protocol. Containment, preservation, judgment." "That sounds like a weapon," she said. "It was meant to be a safeguard," he corrected, "for when humanity's enemies returned." "We're not your enemies," she insisted. He regarded her for a long moment, eyes narrowing slightly. "Not yet." The words hung between them like a blade. Serka's mind raced. She needed control, leverage, anything to stop him from turning the Dreadnought into a catastrophe. "If you awaken the core fully, this vessel will destabilize. We're inside it." "Then you should leave," Phantom replied simply. His gaze softened slightly, almost regretful. "I don't want to harm you." "Your warning implies you might," she said. "I imply nothing," he answered. "The Erebus will defend herself. It's what she was made for." He moved toward the central walkway, the holograms following his gestures like obedient birds. Serka caught up to him, keeping pace at his side. "You speak of this ship as though it's alive." "It is," he said without hesitation. "We gave her thought so she could outlast us. We made sure she would never forget what we were." Serka studied him. There was no boast in his voice, only conviction. "And what were you?" she asked. "Human," he said simply. And that used to mean something. Something inside her twisted at that. She had been taught to see humans as reckless destroyers, but this man spoke with reverence, not rage. He seemed burdened by the weight of his own existence, a relic still obeying orders from a dead age. "Your world is gone," she said quietly. "You can't bring it back." He turned to her then, and for the first time she saw weariness in his expression. "You think this is about resurrection?" "No, this is about memory. If no one remembers what humanity was, then it truly dies." Before she could answer, the ship trembled. Ver shouted over the rising hum. "Lieutenant, systems across the deck are activating. Defense grids, power conduits, everything." Phantom stepped to a console and laid his palm flat once more. "Stop fighting it. The Erebus is purging foreign code." Serka's visor flickered. Dominion command signals were being erased from their equipment. "You're disabling our link," she realized. "Correct," Phantom said. "No one outside this vessel should see what she contains." "And what is that?" she demanded. He looked at her, and the faint light of the monitors reflected in his eyes like the cold gleam of stars. The last record of what humanity sacrificed to protect the galaxy from itself. Silence filled the chamber, broken only by the ship's distant heartbeat. Phantom turned toward the door, pausing as if deciding whether to let them live. "You've seen enough to know you shouldn't have come," he said quietly. Serka swallowed hard. "And if we stay," he gave a small, humorless smile, "then you'll learn what it means when ghosts remember." The lights dimmed again, plunging them into half-darkness. Somewhere deep in the hull, a low tone echoed, vast and solemn. Serka didn't know whether it was a warning or a morning song, but she knew this. The ship was awake, and whatever came next, they were part of its story now. The corridors of the Erebus pulsed with new life, veins of light snaking along the walls, as if the ship were remembering how to breathe. Lieutenant Serka stood on the command deck, watching as the human systems rewrote themselves faster than her scanners could interpret. Her team had retreated to the shuttle bay, but she had stayed behind. Curiosity outweighed fear now, though fear still whispered at the edges of her thoughts. Phantom-9 stood before the main viewport, motionless, hands clasped behind his back as he stared into the nebula's shifting light. There was a serenity in his stillness that made her uneasy. It was the calm of someone who had already accepted whatever came next. "You've turned this ship into a fortress," she said quietly. "Your actions will bring Dominion warships here within hours." "I know," he replied. His voice carried neither alarm nor pride. "They will come. It's what your kind does when it feels threatened." "And what will you do when they arrive?" she asked. His reflection flickered in the glass, eyes burning faintly blue. "I will do what I was made for." Serka stepped closer. "You speak as though you're still a soldier. Your war ended centuries ago. There's nothing left to fight." He turned to face her, and for a heartbeat, the full weight of his gaze pressed against her. "You're wrong. War doesn't end. It sleeps, waiting for those who forget what it cost. The Erebus remembers." "I remember." He looked away again, as if weary of his own persistence. "We built these ships to ensure our mistakes would never be repeated." Humanity's last order to the Phantoms was to guard the silence that followed. She hesitated, torn between empathy and duty. "Then why wake now? We didn't threaten you. We came to learn." "You came to own," he said softly. "To catalog, to claim, to dissect. That's not learning. It's inheritance without understanding. The same arrogance that once belonged to us." His words struck her harder than she wanted to admit. The Dominion prided itself on efficiency and conquest, yet standing before this relic, she felt more primitive than ever. The ship shuddered suddenly, pulling her from her thoughts. Alarms blared in the alien language of the Erebus. Phantom's gaze sharpened. "They found us." Through the viewport, lights appeared against the black, Dominion cruisers gliding in formation. Serka's comlink crackled as her command channel reconnected. "Lieutenant, respond. Multiple hostile readings from the vessel. Evacuate immediately." The voice of her superior was distant, panicked. She turned the link off. "They think you've taken control," she said. "I have," Phantom answered, almost gently, "but only of what was already mine." Serka watched as Dominion weapons powered up, their targeting arrays aligning on the Dreadnought. "If they fire, this ship will collapse. There's no victory in that." He didn't move. "They won't destroy me. They want to study what you found. The living human." He smiled faintly. "They'll get their wish." She felt anger surge past fear. "You're not a weapon anymore. If you fight them, you'll prove everything they believe about you." Phantom turned, and for the first time, she saw pain in his expression, something deeply human flickering behind the cybernetic calm. "You think I want this? You think I haven't dreamed of dying with my brothers in the dark? But the Erebus is more than steel. She holds what's left of us. If they erase that, then humanity truly dies." Outside, a cruiser released a warning volley, plasma bolts streaking past the Dreadnought's hull. The Erebus responded instantly, shields flaring to life with a sound like thunder. The deck trembled under her boots. "They're forcing your hand," she said. "No," he whispered. "They're forcing yours." He stepped aside, revealing the primary command at her face. its symbols pulsing like a heartbeat. You wanted to understand. Now decide. Do you help me preserve what remains, or do you let them erase it for your promotion? Her throat tightened. If I help you, they'll call me a traitor. If you don't, you'll be an accomplice to extinction. The choice hung between them, heavy and absolute. Another barrage struck the hull, shaking the deck. Consoles sparked. Alarm screamed. She pressed her hands to the panel, her claws trembling. What I need to do? He didn't smile, but his tone softened. Authorized transmission. The Erebus carries archives of human memory. Our history, our failure, our warning. It must be seen, not buried. As she entered her override codes, the ship's systems integrated them seamlessly, bridging alien and human technology in a way that shouldn't have been possible. Streams of light poured from the core, stretching through the hull like veins of knowledge. A surge of energy erupted into space, an encrypted signal, scattering toward every relay in range. Outside, Dominion sensors detected it instantly. Their weapons turned from warning to assault. The first blast hit, tearing through the outer deck. The floor lurched beneath them. Phantom caught Serka's arm before she fell. It's done, he said. The message is gone. Humanity speaks again. You'll die here, she said. He released her, stepping back toward the center of the room. I already did. The ship's power systems flared white-hot. Serka ran for the evacuation lift, glancing back one last time. Phantom stood alone, framed by the light of his awakening world. For an instant, the machine and the man seemed indistinguishable, a monument to everything his species had been. The lift doors closed, sealing her view. As it descended, the deck quaked with explosions, the sound muted through layers of metal and distance. When she reached the hangar, Ver grabbed her arm. Lieutenant, the human. He stayed, she said. He made his choice. They launched from the Erebus as its reactors ignited in a silent bloom of blue fire. The Dominion ships pulled back, caught off guard by the surge of energy. Through the viewport, the Dreadnought burned without sound, a dying star reclaiming its light. In her mind, Serka still heard his final words. If no one remembers, we were never here. She looked toward the data feed streaming across her console, an echo of the transmission she had helped send. Human voices spoke through static, stories and fragments spilling into the void. When the Erebus finally disappeared into the nebula's light, Serka whispered to herself, "Maybe your kind never died." The shuttle drifted onward, carrying with it the last truth of humanity and the burden of those who would remember.